The tool that we created is actually part of the Alchemy Cloud suite of products. So we put a variety of things in the cloud. One of the reasons for this is that it shortens the time to deploy. We're very intentional with this proofing tool. There's lots of them out there. And in our research, we looked at probably 50 of them and picked the best features of all of those, but kept it really simple. So the whole point of this is that you could get into proofing literally in 30 minutes. It could set you up with an account and it would be an expert with it very quickly. You'll see why. Okay, so I'm going to log in. And once you have an account set up, which takes about 5 minutes, then you'll log in. Now, as a designer, you'll see it one way, and as a reviewer, you'll see it as another. So I'll try to point that out here as we go along. So I've logged in as a designer, and the first thing I see is some of the most immediate jobs that I've been working on. So I have a quick hit here. If it's something that these are the hot ones or things that I worked on yesterday, today, then they would show up here. You can also view these things in a little different format. I like to use this one because it shows me a file-based view, and I can look at all of more than just those on the summary page. And I can see immediately what's going on with all of my proofs as a designer. So I can see this one was received into the system at this date. There's the due date on it that I put on there for somebody to review it. And here's the reviewer. In fact, I signed that one to myself. Here we have something else. This one has 3 reviewers: Maria, myself, and Manina. And I can see also the status of the proof. So it was created. That means it was uploaded into the system. It was sent out to the reviewers. They opened it, but they haven't completed the approval process yet. So I get a quick view on all my work and where it stands with the various people that need to review. From here, I can also do things like, well, let's look at the books flyer. So I can look at this, and as a reviewer or the designer, I might get this view. I can comment on it. So you see these tools up here. I can add a comment to this section over here. And, seems a little light, whatever I want to say. And I can comment on the piece. When I do that, then, it posts that comment, and it also allows me to at somebody and set a comment for the designer. So any kind of comments that come up here that I post could immediately be emailed to the designer to say, hey, Matt just commented on that piece. So we're creating these touch points from activity inside the proofing tool that are automatically triggered so people don't have to do it. So typically if I'm modifying a PDF, then I'm either going to attach it back to an email and send it, or I'm going to send somebody the email and say, hey, make these particular changes. Here it's just automatic. As I start to comment, the notifications go to the designer. If I want to look at the back sides or whatever, they would all show up here on the screen. There's also this version control that can be managed within the system. Let me see if this one has any versions. This one doesn't, but I'll show you another one. There's rulers and various things that people can use as well to check the accuracy of the document or the content that's being designed. Another thing, let me see, there's mailings. I'll show you that. So you can actually look at records. There's a database in this proofing tool. So if you're doing production proofing, you could see an actual mailing with all of the records. And let me show you that now. So here we have the mailing itself. If I want to view the records, I can look at them on a screen like this. Sometimes there's workflows where you want to reject individual pieces. So not just accept or reject the job, but accept or reject individual documents or pieces within the job. And you can do that here. So I can reject all, approve all, or I can select some, and now I can reject the selected pieces. So for mailers, this is an important feature. That data is in the database, and that's what you saw on that previous screen, but we also have the documents themselves. All of these would be maintained in the system, and you can store them for the evidence if you want long-term storage there. By the way, on the right-hand side, you also have a panel. So there's different ways to get to the data. So here I see that it was received, the due date, it was created by me. The PDF version histories are here. So this one definitely has 2 versions. I'll go look at those in a minute. The event history, this is really important. All the things that people do within the system are recorded here. So it's basically been me on this one. If we look at some other ones, you'll see all the different people that logged in, that reviewed it, that commented. You'll see those activities here. If they approved it, you'll have a log entry here that they approved it. If they rejected, you'd see a log entry for rejection. So all of that's maintained here in the system. So let's look at this one for the version compare. There's a nice little feature here that allows you to quickly compare without having to use your eyeballs. Let's go to the old version. So there's version 0. I'm looking at version 1 right now, so let's bring up version 0. So far, they look kind of the same, so a little bit hard to find the change. So if I do an auto compare, then it will do basically a light table test, a byte for byte comparison. Actually, I shouldn't say byte for byte, pixel for pixel comparison of the two documents. And then it found that there's an email on the new version, there's not on the old, and the date has changed. So the variable content can be compared as well as the static content. You would see those differences. So it's a nice tool to quickly compare and find things that would be different. If you tried to eyeball this, you could miss it. There's a lot of stuff on this document, and there's other documents that I'm sure you deal with and things that are even more complicated than this. It'd be really hard to find differences just by looking at it. The way to get stuff in here is either through these buttons manually or through the automation that I talked about earlier with the API and the SFTP. If you did an SFTP, then you probably would create a project. And that's an area where you have sort of recurring work and automation, maybe the same set of reviewers all the time, a due date that is days from upload, so it's always 3 days from the date of upload. You can create this automation in the system with a project, or you can do just a quick proof by uploading through the quick proof. So if I go here and I say upload a file with quick proof, then I'll just upload the same flyer that I showed you earlier. And we've got the book flyer in here again. And so instantaneously, I've got a proof. I can assign some reviewers. So I just put in, if it's somebody who's already in the system, I can select them as a reviewer. And they would get an email that says, hey, you've been assigned to review this document or this piece. Now, once you have that content in there, then that version control I showed you before allows you to do this thing where you're going back and forth between a production proof and the design proof, because a lot of times you want to compare those things. Am I using the most recent version in production of the proof that was approved on the left-hand side? And so within the tool, it has that capability I showed you to do that side by side to make sure that the most current version of the design is being used.